Welcome to the web class. My name is Benji. It is Thursday, October 16th at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. Mark is here. We are really excited to have you all here. As you can see up on our screen, we've got a jam-packed hour planned. We're going to talk today for the next 60 minutes about how to maximize revenue per employee with 3 AI-powered workflows. This is a topic that's obviously very buzzy. People talk about it. We talk about it all the time. One of the things that I'm super frustrated by when I look at the content world that we all live in now is very few people are sort of slowing down to show you how to actually use these tools in your business in a way that's practical, that's functional, that's approachable and not super intimidating. And so the next little bit, all we're going to do is show you how to deploy LeanScaper AI to fix 3 things in your business. So we've got some setup we're going to go through. We're going to explain a couple ideas. We're going to do a few screen shares of LeanScaper AI in action with some prompts that you can take home and use yourself. The goal being to make this whole AI conversation, this whole tech-enabled conversation a little bit less intimidating, a little less scary, and a little more fun for you. If you haven't yet, say hello in the chat box. Just let us know where you're from and the business that you run. I'd love to see some names pop up. Hey, Christy. Hey, Dave. Hello, everyone. And just one other housekeeping thing before we keep moving. If you have questions today, put those in the Q&A box to the right. I'll try and keep on top of those and ask them when they feel organic. I may need to sort of put a few in the parking lot and circle back to them at the end. If you do have questions, we will spend a couple extra minutes at the top of the hour doing Q&A as well. So questions to the Q&A. Mark, are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, cool. So purpose for today, guys. We want to help you confidently begin adopting AI into your business by fixing 3 really commonly broken workflows. This is easy stuff. When Mark explains how this is impacting your business, I promise you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not fixing this. And we're going to give you some tools that are going to make the fix really easy. So what we want as an outcome is for you to leave with a clear roadmap to drive revenue per employee with these workflows. And more importantly, you feel comfortable using AI to optimize your sales process. That's workflow 1. Estimate more profitably. That's workflow 2. And effectively job cost every project so you know what your winners and losers are, and you can do more winners and less losers. That's workflow 3. So that is the plan for today. The agenda. Really simple. We're going to go through a quick bio. Mark's going to introduce himself. We want to talk a little bit about LeanScaper OS. It's not going to take more than a minute or 2, but for those of you that are new to LeanScaper, it's a really good level set and framing for the whole conversation. If you don't kind of get that, the rest of this isn't going to make sense. We'll talk about why this topic is so important, meaning driving revenue per hour. There's some sort of obviously, it sounds good when you say revenue per hour, up and to the right is positive, down to the left is negative, but we're going to break down in a little bit more concrete detail some of the hidden costs of not attacking this in your business. Then we're going to talk about some challenges and roadblocks. So if you're kind of feeling like, hey, Mark's been talking about driving revenue per hour or revenue per employee in my business for years, but it just seems I can't quite get to it. There's some reasons why that is. This is a tricky thing to tackle. And one of the things that we're so excited about with LeanScaper AI and Lana is making some of that stuff a lot easier to deal with. So we'll get through the challenges and roadblocks. We'll go through the 3 workflows, and then we'll do some Q&A towards the end. And that is the end of that slide. Okay, so who are we? My name is Benji. I'm the EVP of Community Growth here at LeanScaper. I lead our podcast. I work really closely with our media team to make all the stuff that we put out there on the internet. Super, super passionate about the blue collar economy and giving you guys the tools, resources, training, education, community that you need to run the businesses that you want. And today I'm joined by Mark. Some of you know him, but some of you don't. So Mark, really quickly, let's get like the 60-second bio on you. Timer's on.
25 years in the landscape business and 15 years in the software business. All in 35 years of work, all in landscape. So I did do a few years in the nuclear apprenticeship program, but continued to do landscaping right through those years as well. And yeah, I love everything about landscaping, everything from doing the work to running the business to all the headaches that come along with trying to get good at both. I think I really do love everything about the industry.
Mark loves it so much that he and now we are on a mission, and you can kind of read this mission statement here: empowering landscapers to build thriving businesses by putting people first, developing strong leaders, skilled teams, and a culture of continuous growth. But I think we can do better than that quick sentence. And Mark, I'll go back to you on this just briefly for the new people in the audience today. What is LeanScaper about? What's the movement and the mission that we're trying to create about? I know this has been a lot of years coming for you, and I think it's really helpful for the audience to know what inspired all this that we're going to cover today.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think over the years, the thing that became most apparent to me as it felt like I kind of hit every bump in the road. I think most of us do feel that way. Sometimes we hide it and try to internalize it. I know I certainly did that for many years. I think just creating a community where we actually share the solutions that we've come up with along the way is much needed in this industry. Going to trade shows, going to association training, and kind of getting one lesson at a time works, I suppose. But what I really wanted to do was string together a 1-year-long program where people could sort of see how, after 35 years of learning and spending tens of millions of dollars between mistakes and paying for mentors and hiring my mentors and kind of taking one step forward and 2 steps back, I thought I could put together a program that would allow people to see how I would run through a year this day and age as an executive CEO. Obviously, along the way, you know, I went from being a technician to a tradesman to a business owner, and certainly ran my business like an owner-operator for many years, and probably ran it that way for too many years, if I'm honest. Hurting myself, hurting others, and I think ultimately just doing it the hard way. And what I really wanted to do is just create a program that would enable me to help others learn at a reasonable pace and in a reasonable order. So that's why it's a year-round program that you can join anytime. And obviously, with the advent of AI and the availability now for all of us, I felt that using an AI platform to generate all of this information and answers and enable people to do this without waiting for the next web class or without attending a conference, but really building a set of tools that would allow people to recreate their own brain in their business so that they can continue to build leaders around them. And so there's a general theme that you often hear me say, which is be a leader of leaders. And ultimately, with LeanScaper, that's what we're trying to do, is enable people to continue to build more leaders so that businesses can scale. Because if there's one thing I really learned over the past 35 years is that the limit of your business is the limit of the leader's knowledge, and the founder is usually the limiting factor. But then very quickly, as the founder does learn to go first and keep learning, they also have to find a way to keep enabling other leaders to keep learning and keep passing that knowledge forward. And really, that's what we're doing with LeanScaper AI and the Accelerator program.
So that's a perfect segue to introduce a concept that some of you will be familiar with, some not. But everything that we do here at LeanScaper ties back to one very, very central idea, which is the LeanScaper operating system, or LeanScaper OS, as you'll hear us call it for short. So it's like, what's an operating system? What's an OS? Most of you, a lot of you will be Mac users or iPhone users. You're familiar with Mac OS or iOS. It's sort of like the governing infrastructure that runs your phone. For some of you readers, you'll be really familiar with the book Traction and EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is an awesome business framework that probably many of you have run. Let me know in the chat if you guys are EOS fans, users, readers, have been to any of their events. We're huge proponents of EOS. Now, I'm bringing up those metaphors to just give you a little bit of a a reference point. What we're trying to do with LeanScaper OS is build an operating system that is hyper industry specific. So as good as EOS is, one of the things that I think even they'll admit is a limitation is it's a broad audience, right? They work with a whole bunch of different industries, a whole bunch of different businesses and business sizes. And what we really saw as a need in the market is creating a LeanScaper focused and industry specific operating system that uses our language, our benchmarks, our tools, our processes, is really familiar with the way in which a landscape project gets done, a landscape customer gets found, a landscape business gets run overarchingly. And so that's what we're building here at LeanScaper. And it's a 4-component section, right? 4-component wheel, as you can see on the screen. There is a finance component. So all things budgeting and job costing and finance tracking and all that stuff fits in there. There's a people component. So when you think about hiring and recruitment and HR and career ladders and developing leaders within, that's the people component of the LeanScaper operating system. We have a customer component, which you can think of as sort of the revenue side of your business, your marketing, your sales, your onboarding, your customer success. And then, of course, there's an operations component as well. How you actually get the jobs done, how you make the money. Now, at the dead center of this thing, you can see there's a mission and vision. And this is really like this at the center of the wheel for a reason. You as a business owner have or are developing a really clear picture for what you want your ideal business to look like in a few years. And the 4 quadrants that surround it are kind of the things that need to be invested in a balanced way over time to bring that to life. And so that's what we're designing and building, and we're creating AI tools that help you implement that stuff faster. So templates and checklists and books and all that stuff is awesome, but the way technology is changing right now, there's actually much better tools that allow you to deploy and fix things in your business much quicker. So I just thought I'd share that at the outset, because a lot of what we're going to cover today really focuses on the operations component of the LeanScaper OS. So we're going to talk about how to drive revenue per hour or revenue per employee in your business through a few operational systems. So to do today well, this is just a little bit more kind of housekeeping at the beginning. Let me know in the chat how many of you guys are already on LeanScaper AI, familiar with Lana, have used it before. Just give us a thumbs up there. If you're not, okay, if this is your first LeanScaper event, you've never logged in before, today is going to be a lot more impactful if you are logged in. And so what I want you to do is go to LeanScaper.ai in your browser and make a free account. So we don't charge for this. Everything that we're talking about and showing today is available to you for free. It takes less than a minute to set up, and you can do this literally as we're transitioning from this slide to the next slide. What you're going to see when you go to these pages is a very simple login screen like that. You can use your Google login with the first button, or you can sort of input the email and password fields if you want. It's going to verify your email, so you have to go and click a button in your inbox. That takes 30 seconds. And then sign in is complete. You're going to add some company details. It'll ask you a couple questions like revenue and headcount and basic stuff. But if you go and do that right now, LeanScaper.ai, set this up for free. You will be able to do these exercises along with us. If that's too much work, you can watch and set this up later. But seriously, this only takes a quick sec. So that's my last little bit of housekeeping. Let's move on to the next section. So Mark, have we got the vibe board ready there to share? Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to spotlight yours.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. As always, I know how busy it is and how difficult it is to sit in front of a computer, whether you're on the road in your truck or on a job site or back at the office. This topic matters. Obviously, revenue per hour has been something that I've been, I think, flying around North America for 20 years talking about. And it's generally this unheard of metric until somebody points it out. Now, for me, the person that pointed it out, I would say changed my life. And it was definitely a mentor that I was dealing with, not from the landscape industry. This was a metric that I kind of stumbled upon when I was working with a mentor to help me understand how to scale a business. Now, he immediately pointed out that revenue per full-time employee annually was this metric that would actually tell me whether or not I could start to scale the business with more crews and more tradespeople and be able to afford that. And when we first started looking at revenue per employee, we were looking at it annually, but I quickly decided that I needed to boil that down to an hourly number, because that hourly number would create all kinds of insight when we were selling work and when we were estimating work to tell us if we were actually selling the right work that would create the result at the end of the year. For many years, Mike and I went around with LMN, with Caterpillar, and we did budgeting workshops all over North America. And the thing we talked about the most in trying to optimize was revenue per hour. And that number kind of rings through everywhere in LMN. When you go on an estimate, it tells you revenue per hour. When you look at your budget at the end of the year, on the analysis page, it tells you the revenue per hour that that budget is predicted to create. Now, what I've always believed since learning about revenue per hour is if we sell high revenue per hour work, and if we get that work done on time, then we're always going to be healthy. And so it became this sort of day-to-day number that made me feel, I think, a little bit safe, which I think it's important we all feel safe as the business was scaling. And I always felt like if I could really rationally explain revenue per hour to everybody in the business and how important it was for us to be able to be profitable, continue to pay high wages and increase those wages year over year, and service our customers with excellence, then I had something that I could talk about. And it would ring through every part of the business, because we had to sell high revenue per hour work. We had to price our work in order to get high revenue per hour. We had to design it that way, or we had to scope it out that way in the case of maintenance or snow plowing. And then most importantly, we had to be able to produce the work within the projected hours so that that revenue per hour number actually played out in the field. So this number ended up being really important. It was important for finance, it was important for sales, it was important for service, for operations. And so this number kind of connected us all. And I always felt it was more important than gross profit, because gross profit is kind of hard to boil down to a frontline metric. Now, what I've always done with revenue per hour, rather than talking about that with the crews each day, is I just simply talk about estimated hours versus actual. Because if we went and priced the work right, and it was priced to serve our revenue per hour goal, then all I really have to say to the field crew leaders is how many hours we've allotted for the job, and then we just get to talk about that number rather than dollars, which I've always felt is a little easier. So this number really matters in the business. Now, it matters because higher revenue per hour work generates more overhead recovery for every hour we're working, which means we actually pay for our overhead sooner. So we've got better equipment, better yards, we've got better overhead staff, we can afford better accountants, better people managers, all kinds of things much faster when we're producing more revenue from every hour. Because if I have a crew out that produces $100 per hour per person, and I've got 20 or 30% overhead recovery, I'm getting $20 or $30 per hour to cover all of that overhead. But if I can go sell work that was $200 per hour, well, now for every hour that that employee's out working, I'm generating $40 to $60 per hour to cover all of the overhead. And I think we all know just how expensive the overhead is in this business. And if I want great executive leadership, and if I want great managers, and I want great facilities and the best equipment, the best mechanics, I have to be able to afford them. And when I sell the right work and I attract the right clients that are looking to buy that work, and then I build a great team of people who can execute that really technical work, well, I've kind of built a machine. And that machine is designed to attract and complete high revenue per hour work, which allows me to keep paying higher wages. And of course, then I end up with a really profitable business that's really valuable, something that can be sold. And then definitely I'm getting paid a fair compensation along the way, which, being honest, in the industry, we're still looking at a 3% net bottom line profit on average, and owner's compensation is still in around that $75,000 a year when you look nationwide. And $75,000 a year to run a business like this just isn't enough. So this matters because we got to optimize these components of the business in order to have a great business. And a great business is great for everyone in it: the owners, the customers, and the people that are out doing the work each day. Now, what I want to talk about, why is it this way? Before we go any further, I think it's important just to acknowledge that you didn't make it this way. It's just this way by nature. When we're technicians that decide to fire up a business, particularly in landscape, we usually didn't end up coming through business school. If you're lucky, you went through high school and you took some sort of a university or college program. And generally speaking, it may have been landscape or it may have been a general business degree. But I think what happens is we don't end up with quite enough education on running a landscape business to be really great at running a landscape business. So we start to make decisions, and these decisions are usually based on our experience as we start up the business. So as founders, if you're like me anyway, I started with a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow, and I had done an apprenticeship in the nuclear industry, and I had been working in landscaping since I was 14. But unfortunately, all of that learning, which is good, and it's funny because I watch my son going through it right now. He's 18, he's starting up his business, he's full-time this year with 15 employees, and he makes his decisions quite often based on his own experiences. Why wouldn't he? That's nature. But and it's hard for me because sometimes I just want him to learn for himself rather than take every bit of advice from me. Or some of the mentors that we've got helping him. But the truth is when you stand back and you watch a founder making decisions just based on their own experiences, it's usually pretty obvious what mistakes are being made. Now, over the years, I was always seeking mentors, but I found it really difficult to find mentors who really understood how to get the most profit and the best wages and happy customers all at once. I would go around and ask that question constantly because some of my mentors were from outside of this industry and said, hey, listen, Mark, great businesses find strategy that delivers excellence to customers, excellence to staff, and excellence to shareholders. And at first I remember hearing that, and it was kind of a little bit almost theoretical to me. But that was pointing out my founder bias. And so I want to talk about founder bias off the start here. Ultimately, we're technicians that have turned into business leaders. And in this industry, it's hard to find mentorship. So we go to trade shows and we read blogs and we read articles and we try to assemble patterns to help us run better landscape businesses. But the problem is we go back and we fix one thing, and oftentimes what we fix breaks another. And so if you're like me, early in my career, I just started to blame other people. I'd say, well, we don't have the right people. And I heard myself saying that a lot. And actually, just this past year, I was coaching a young founder, and I oftentimes heard him saying that. Every time there was a problem in his business, he'd say, well, I don't have the right people. I don't have those people you're talking about. And I had to actually stop him at one point and say, whoa, wait a minute. You are not the leader that attracts those people or creates those people yet. Let's just park it there instead of you constantly blaming everybody else. And it was easy for me to do that because he's truly a reflection of where I was at his age. It's so easy to just blame other people and say, my bookkeeper's not good, or my mechanic's not good, or my crew foreman's not good. But if they're not good, ask yourself what they're not good at and ask yourself why it's still that way. And usually it comes back to you. And so where I'm going with this is, as a founder, it's really important to be able to see your bias clearly and move past it, because the growth ceiling in your business is your knowledge and is your attitude. And so you have to be willing to go first. The leader has to go first. It's really that simple. Now, the last reason that I think it's this way is, our education system was developed back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, for one reason and one reason only: to produce workers for the Industrial Revolution. So our entire education system is built for one purpose: to produce good employees. It's not built to develop business leaders. People go on to the best business schools in North America, and they usually only get in based on who they know and how much money they have. And the reality is most people running landscape businesses didn't get that type of business education. Now, throughout the years, I've hired those people, I've partnered with those people, I've been in business with those people, and I can tell you they do run businesses differently. They run businesses using data and metrics, and they create systems that drive better behaviors so that people get to become the best version of themselves. And if you want to run a great landscape business, you just need to do the same. And that's why this metric is so important, because it enables other people to see what good looks like and then understand how to get better one day at a time. And that is really the difference between, average leaders and amazing leaders that really sort of break the cycle in any industry or any business. The leader that's willing to go first and learn exactly how to help other people see what good looks like and how to make improvements along the way. And that's really why we called LeanScaper LeanScaper. We wanted to create a system whereby not just the founder, but everybody in the business understands what looks good and how to make it that way. So we're going to talk through why revenue per hour is one of those most important numbers. Now, again, the founder bias, what is it? I want to be really clear on the definition. Founder bias is really when the company decision-making is always based on the founder. Now, people come back to the founder, and I struggle with this every day. We all do. When people are coming back to the founder for every answer, what they're doing is they're looking for the founder to solve the problems based on the experiences that the founder gained in the early days of running the business. And if you keep running your business that way over and over, what ends up happening is the business kind of stalls. So if you're one of those business owners that have found that the business is stalled, you might be operating within this limitation that I'm talking about. Is that big enough?
You could go a little bigger. That's nice. Yeah, that's good.
The founder bias is really quite simple. When the founder built the business, they had to sort of deal with everything. Now, over here on the left, if we think about the founder running the business in the early stage reality, we've got one person really being the go-between between the people doing the work and the customer. And this happens all the time. We all know this is the way it is. In my business, it went on way too long. The founder deals with the customer tells them what they want, then the founder goes and tells everybody in the company what to do. And it works for a while, and it works really well. In fact, that's why startups are often so efficient. Like, there's kind of this thing, like, never fuck with a startup, because you can't beat their price. They will outwork you and out hustle you, and they have no overhead. It's really difficult to really challenge a founder who's really, really good at being good. And what I mean by that is more grit and more attention to excellence is really hard to beat at scale. But if you want to keep scaling the business beyond the founder, then you're going to have to build systems. It's really that simple. And so when you think about it, early stage reality is super fast decision making, really gut-driven decisions, like I'm the owner, I know the way it should be, so let's just do it. All hands are like on everything. Like there's not a person to do this and a person to do that. It's just like everybody gets in there and makes it happen. And the customer is really simple to define. It's like, if you have money and you have a problem and I've got the ability to solve it, you're my customer. It's really simple. So the founders operate that way, and the business starts to pick up steam. And when we start hiring more people and expecting to duplicate this, we have to kind of narrow this down, and we have to decide what we're going to do so that we can systemize it. Because this works for a while, but then it doesn't. And if you keep running your business that way, trust me, I'll tell you exactly what will happen. You will wake up one day with complete burnout. You won't feel like running this business. You're going to want to sell it. You're going to blame your employees and your customers for every problem that exists in the business. And you're going to feel so tired that you just want to do something else. That is when you've truly hit the founder ceiling. And it's actually pretty easy to fix. It's just, you're a few decisions away from moving over to the right. Now, when you're on the right, this is when you've got this systems first reality in your business, where when there's a problem, you solve it by creating a system instead of running into the burning building and solving all the problems. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you're that type of founder, and certainly I've been that type of founder, you might be actually addicted to the chaos. This is normal. It's like every time you solve a little problem for your staff or your customers, you get a little dose of dopamine. So it feels kind of good when you solve these problems. But when you've got too many coming at you, then it starts to get overwhelming. And eventually, if it happens long enough, you'll actually burn out. So the very thing that makes you feel good, being the problem solver, running around fixing this and fixing that, always having the answer, being the solutions guy. I remember this, Mark knows, or the customers doesn't like where we put the steps, call Mark, he'll come over and talk them into it. Like, I used to really be proud when I'd show up and calm the customer down, and I'd feel almost, more uplifted because there was a problem. That is getting addicted to chaos. You have to get away from that. And the only way is to systemize it. And if that sounds boring, guess what? It is. And boring is excellent. When you've got it figured out where systems deal with these things, it might seem boring once in a while. And trust me, if you find yourself so bored that you've got all this extra time on your hands, just go back to your calendar and put something in the calendar to fill it. That's exciting. But don't keep running around burning all of your bridges one at a time, just so that you get to go put the fires out and save the day. What I really recommend is like this systems first mentality, where in the middle, we've got teams that are powered by data. These teams understand what the data means. Revenue per hour is a guiding metric. I want to make sure my sales team doesn't go sell jobs unless it hits a revenue per hour threshold. So that's going to be what I call one of our rules of engagement. If my design build jobs don't exceed $200 per revenue hour, do not bid them. I don't want the job. It's a no. We've got more good leads coming in. Let's not waste our time on low revenue per hour work. Now, in order to know whether or not a lead is high revenue per hour or low revenue per hour, we have to know what kind of work is high revenue or low revenue. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want that data to be clear to the sales team, and then I want it to be clear to the ops team to know, in order to do more revenue per hour, we've got some levers to pull that are going to enable us to get the work done faster. And so I'm going to give you some examples of what those levers are, how to pull them, and really how to systemize things so that this higher revenue per hour doesn't become a founder ceiling or a founder roadblock, but rather it's baked into the data, the systems, the customers that we're taking, and more importantly, into your teams. Everybody knows what good looks like, and so we build a machine, a profit machine, a high wage paying machine, and a happy customer machine. but we can only build it if we've got high revenue per hour work. This is the fuel for a great business.
That's a perfect segue, Mark. Let's get to that next slide. Workflow 1, designing a sales process that your ideal client loves and helps you drive higher revenue per hour work. So Mark's going to spend a minute going through the why on all this, different stages, how we actually think about this. And then in a minute or two, we're actually going to do a quick Lana exercise and ditch the vibe board, go straight into LeanScaper AI, and we'll show you how quick it is to build a solution for this. So I just wanted to add that here before we set up this section, and we've got 2 more to follow. So tell us about designing a sales process, Mark.
Yeah, so revenue per hour gets baked right into the sales process. As I said, I want to make sure that when the phone rings or when someone hits a web form on the website, that we almost immediately know whether or not that's a good lead. Now, if you don't have revenue per hour as a guiding metric, then you probably don't know whether or not your leads are actually good leads. In other words, if somebody called me up and they said, hey, we'd love to have you come and lift and relay our paver driveway, in my mind, immediately that means there's no material. And if there's no material, then there's going to be really low revenue per hour on the job. So I'm not saying that I'll say no. If I have no other work, I'm going to go have to bid that job. But I'm going to have to bid it in a way where I get higher revenue per hour than just simply lifting and relaying the pavers. And so I'm going to keep that in mind. If not, maybe even just say no. If I've got a full funnel with all kinds of leads, I might say to them, yeah, we don't do that. We'd be happy to install a new driveway, but we actually don't relay old pavers. That's just not a service that we offer. They might not like it, but I'm in business to pay my staff really well and make profit. And I don't really like doing those jobs because I have so much demand from being excellent that I don't need to do those jobs anymore. Now, somebody else might really want that job. And if that's you, it's okay. But let's make sure that you get enough revenue per hour to make it profitable. And that's really what my point is here. When we start looking at leads, we have to remember not all leads are created equal. Some leads we shouldn't bother wasting our time on. Now, there's deciding factors there, and I've put a few of them alongside the funnel here. I want to make sure that they're my ideal customer profile. Now, what is that? If you don't have an ICP, it's really quite simple. These are customers that kind of match what we're selling. So I always say, like, are they buying what we're selling? That makes them our ICP. Now, what that means is the project size big enough? Is it in the right geographical area? Is it the right services? Like, is it work that we actually want to do? Work that pays us well? Work that produces high revenue per hour work? I love doing snow plowing because it's high revenue per hour. I love doing design build, high revenue per hour. I love doing commercial maintenance because it's high revenue per hour, but I won't do it if they don't add on all of our packaging. If it's just grass cutting, it's a no-go because it's low revenue per hour. So I use the revenue per hour to craft a better ICP, and then this allows us to operate more efficiently. I've designed my ICP around other things like, will they pay fast? Will they make decisions fast? Are their decisions based solely on price? Are they actually going to pay? That's a big one. I mean, I've done jobs before for millions of dollars where I didn't get paid because some company in Spain decided not to pay the bill. I want to make sure that all of these things are accurate. And when I actually do this engineering of my ICP, it makes it easier for me to decide who my right leads are. Then when they come through the funnel, I'm going to engineer the funnel, always making decisions based on revenue per hour. So first off, what leads are we going to act upon and move through to qualified? The leads that match our ICP, and our ICP is based on actual revenue per hour expected. So now I've got my ICP baked with revenue per hour. I've got a qualified lead. I know they match that. Now, when I go out and do a discovery call, either in person or on a 15-minute Zoom, I'm confirming whether or not what they're buying is what we're selling. Again, I'm confirming that my revenue per hour is going to be protected. Then I'll go do a site assessment, start to make decisions around design or scope of work, depending on what type of lead it is. And then I'm going to put together a proposal. Now, when I get to the proposal phase, I want to make sure that I really understand exactly how much revenue per hour I'm producing on that estimate before I ever deliver it. Because again, this is the tip of the spear. And most contractors completely kill their business right here. They're not managing the funnel. They're not acting on the right leads. In fact, they're wasting their time on hundreds of leads that they should never have even gotten in the truck and driven over to their house or property. They should have really qualified them right and put more effort into leads that are going to be high revenue per hour. Now, when I put my proposals out, again, there's a threshold. That estimate has to meet my minimum threshold or my budgeted revenue per hour, or I'm not even going to go and put a proposal in. If I can't put a proposal in that meets that threshold, then we shouldn't even be talking to them. So again, my proposal is built to deliver high revenue per hour work. And I'm going to go close that work, and then I'm going to hand it off to operations. And so you have to have these rules of engagement built into the business before you start hiring salespeople. Otherwise, maybe the founder knows what to sell and who to sell it to, but everybody else is just kind of out selling like the founder used to, where anybody with money and anybody who signs a contract is good revenue. And that's just not the case when you start scaling. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Obviously, no estimates should go out with a target of anything less than your revenue per hour. If you're using LMN, that's baked right into your annual budget and right into each estimate, and it's baked right into job costing. So you can't miss it. You're either not using LMN right, or you're not actually paying attention to the metrics that are on the pages. But revenue per hour is the most important metric on everything that's built within LMN. Now, when we start to think about building this, I think you can use Lana. Now, I think Benji's going to show you here a prompt or two. But anytime you're trying to build anything, whether it's, hey, Lana, help me build my ICP, my ideal customer profile, she's going to walk you through that just like a mentor or a business coach would. And it's really important that you look at Lana as a deployment agent. She's in place so that you can ask questions. Now, we've spent many years assembling a lot of content, everything I've ever written, just about everything I've ever said for the past 3 years, and definitely a world of data from all of the businesses that I've been involved with. And what we've done is we've accumulated a huge library of information so that Lana can start to interact a little bit more intelligently with you. So Benji, why don't you take it from here and show people exactly what that looks like in action?
Galen, can you give me a thumbs up? Is that screen showing Lana now? Awesome. Thank you. So earlier at the beginning, I said, hey, you're going to want to go and set up an account. For those of you that didn't, I think once you see this, you're going to see why. So we're now inside LeanScaper AI, and I've clicked on Lana AI on our left, which is our chat agent, our deployment agent, as Mark said. And so we're going to try this live. We're going to experiment and see how this works. There was a prompt on the vibe board a second ago, which was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically, I need you to help me design a sales process that my ideal customers love. Let's add that. Love, and helps me sell high revenue per hour work. Let's see. So we put this into Lana. Bit about who your ideal customers are. Sure, let's tell her. I like to do residential homeowners. I like these types of jobs. Let's go. Income above 200K. Bang. See what she does. And I'm going to just sort of cut to the chase and show you. She's starting to ask us some questions. Thanks for the clarity. Targeting high income residential homeowners with premium design build services is a great foundation. Here's a simple framework I suggest: consultation and needs discovery, custom proposal and visualization, value reinforcement, closing contract. Okay, got it. So now I know, however, though, that a big problem for us right now is I'm estimating a lot of work that I shouldn't be estimating. I'm going and doing quotes for non-ICP people, tire kickers. Maybe they're just planning for 5 years out. Like I really want to spend my time with more high intent people. So I'm going to ask, let's go ahead and create a script for the discovery call. This would be like, wow, as I'm qualifying a customer for the first time, I like to qualify leads tightly, but I'm not pushy or a high pressure seller. Please design a discovery call script with this in mind. And I just want to show you this quick example of how powerful and how quick this can all be. You can absolutely, this is the cool thing about LeanScaper AI is this is like always a build your own adventure type thing. You can guide this however you want. I'm focusing on the discovery call right now, but if I wanted it to build me a system for the trial close before I deliver the price and ask for the job, I could do that. What I'm going to do here is just open my window a little bit, if you can see that. Discovery call script for high-end residential design build, greeting and intro, build rapport, qualification questions. These are great. This is the stuff that's missing right now for my team. If we ask these questions more clearly, we're a little bit more strict about who we put in my calendar and who we do not. This is really helpful. And then where this becomes really sweet is there's a little button here down here. You can see it's like the little pages. I know my screen is small, but what that does is it allows us to save in Lean Docs. So I'm just going to go discovery call script, and this is going to save for us. I'll hit the save button. I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna view it. And here's what's really cool. Look, this is a great start, but there's stuff about this that I don't love. Like, I don't think that these qualification questions are maybe the right ones. So I can go in here right away and I can delete. And I can ask something different. Do you currently own the property? And what neighborhood is it in? Whatever you want. I think that there's some real value in working with the tool and adding your own human thinking along the way, keeping what they call a human in the loop so that this really feels custom. Now, what a lot of people find when you do this through ChatGPT is it gives you something generic and it's not quite fitting, and you look at it, you're like, yeah, it's mostly good. This is trained on LeanScaper OS, and it has you right in the document editing it before you ship this to your team. This is a shareable doc that if you're building this in the office, you could send this to someone in the field and say, can you have a look at this and edit it with me on the fly? So just a really quick demo. We'll go back to the vibe board and talk about the next workflow here. I just wanted to show you how quickly the system building process is when you're working with a tool like LeanScaper AI. And this really is the AI driven part of the promise we made on this web class. So Mark, are you good with that demo? Is there anything I missed that you think is important to add here before we go to workflow 2?
No, I think you nailed it. But just want to kind of tie it back to the first section that we were in. When you're trying to eliminate the founder bias, the only way to do it is to get the stuff out of your head and into a system. And really, that's what Lana and LeanDocs is doing. It's helping you build systems and document those systems so that other people can access them later, and so that we can deploy AI assistants and agents this fall that help each of your people in whichever role they reside in do their job a little better. So imagine an assistant that's sitting with the person who's answering the front desk, who is always listening and always part of their day, who's actually serving them up the systems that they need as they need them. Now, this makes it a little bit easier for that founder to step out of the day-to-day and trust that things like, qualification questions are actually being used, and that the qualification questions are actually unearthing the very thing that we need, which is the right customers. And that's why we're talking about high revenue per hour. When you know what you're focused on trying to achieve, it makes it much easier to know what systems are needed. Now, a lead qualification form might not seem that important, But what if it's the very thing, the tip of the spear, that's so dull that you end up wasting all your time driving in circles and meeting with customers who were never really the right ideal customer to begin with, all because you didn't have a pre-qualification questionnaire. Now, it's these things that we really unearth over the 50-week program that you go through. We call that the LeanScaper Accelerator program. And it's Lana that helps you fill in the blanks in between. I can't possibly build all the systems in your business in 1 hour a week, and neither can you. But what I do is I walk you through the way that I see a landscape business over the course of a year in the right order. We're talking about what we should be talking about today to optimize the business 3 months from now. So we're actually building the systems in the right order throughout the year so that you're thinking and developing systems in the right timeline in order to really drive the impact 3 months out. Now, I've done this 25 or 30 times, so this cycle has gotten to be a little bit more refined. And I know what we should be revisiting each year, because as I was scaling my business to the top 100, what I was actually doing was constantly adjusting those systems using a 12-month calendar to kind of force me to revisit things. Like right now, for example, in the Accelerator program, we're talking a lot about pricing and packaging. We're updating the way that companies do their pricing and packaging now here in October, because renewal season is coming up, and we want to make sure that we renew the business so that we get the right revenue per hour and we get the right opportunity to sell enhancements without as much heavy lifting next year, so that we can grow the business. And then in January through April, we're going to start getting into heavy pricing season where we're booking up next year, and we want to make sure that's all set. So what we do in that Accelerator program is optimize all the systems, and Lana helps you build them, store them in Lean Docs, and soon she's even going to be deploying AI assistants that run alongside your staff using the new Meta glasses and obviously every other device that you're already using. All right, the next system that I want to talk about here today is the importance of really using estimating as this profit generating system. What we want to do is we want to say profit is going to be predictable now and forever because of the way we estimate. Now, there's more to it than just estimating, and everybody knows that. When we built the LMN estimating software, we built it in a way where it forced people to think about a few things. Now, what that forces is, how long is the job going to take? What material do I use? What equipment will I use? Do I need some subs? And then once I've got those direct costs all figured out, I always like to call these our direct costs. So these are direct. Now, these costs vary depending on what projects we take on or what contracts we're servicing. Now, if we're doing a huge project, we spend more on labor, material, equipment, and maybe subs if it's part of the job. Very simple. But overhead is going to remain constant almost no matter whether we go to work or not. We're still paying for the shop and the electrical and the cell phones and the uniforms and the legal fees and all this stuff, regardless of how big our jobs are. These expenses are fixed expenses. So sometimes you hear the overhead called fixed expenses, or sometimes indirect expenses. For today, I'll just say these are indirect. So these are all the costs that we have on our projects that aren't really as a result of the project, but we still have them and we got to pay for them somehow. So we're going to have to put a markup when we do a job to recover our overhead. Now, again, if you're estimating without actually doing this mathematically, then you're guesstimating. Now, the whole point of revenue per hour is to make sure that we know exactly how much revenue per hour we're going to actually produce before the job starts. We don't want to guess on this because there's some known numbers that exist out there that really make a big difference. When your install revenue is over $200 per hour, and when your maintenance revenue is over $100, you have a strong opportunity to pay your staff well. When somebody tells me that they average $200 per hour in design build, that immediately tells me that they can afford to pay their staff up to $50 per hour with government burden and benefits and other fringe that they might be getting. Why? Because I know that 25% of revenue can be allocated for field labor. So that kind of immediately tells me $200 work means I can pay up to $50 per hour. If it's $250, well, then I can pay $62.50. And so what that tells me is the quality of the people that I'm going to attract and the likelihood that I'm going to retain them over time. Now, if you don't see it that way, that's your problem. But I'm telling you, there is only one way to attract great people, and that is to give them a place to work where they can be safe. And being safe means being able to afford a house, afford a few vacations, afford to pay for their kids to play sports, and afford to go out for dinner once in a while and enjoy life a little bit. And if you're not paying people more than $35 per hour, I don't care where you live, they don't feel safe. It's simple. Revenue per hour matters. And if your business doesn't run smooth and you're still blaming other people, look in the mirror and admit that you haven't actually went first yet. Going first means figuring out how to engineer a successful business. And figuring that out relies on understanding data like this. When you understand it, you can change your life. So we want to get really good at understanding these numbers so that what we end up doing is we can focus on what type of work, what's the cost of the materials, what's the machine access. We want to know these things. How fast can we get it done? These things tell us if we can produce higher revenue per hour. When we know what produces higher revenue per hour, we can change what we do. We can get better because we can use the data to do different things like sell the right work, train our staff, and actually focus on getting more work done in less time. Benji, I'm going to jump on to the next one really quick, and then I think we can take a few questions. I see we're coming up a little bit on time here.
Sounds good.
The last one that I want to talk about is job costing. Now, if you're not job costing, you are hurting yourself. It's that simple. We all do it because we don't know any better. But let me tell you, there is only 3 buckets in your business. Your job buckets are very simple. There's a bucket that's high profit. We all have those jobs. There is a bucket that's break even. We all have those jobs. And there's a bucket of jobs that are losing money. Now, what percentage of your jobs lose money, what percentage break even, and what percentage are high profit dictate what you're left with. And we all know that if we actually understood our job costing and we had a more methodical way of estimating and relying on this revenue per hour number, we could engineer it so that every job's high profit. Now, the worst part of business is knowing that I've got jobs over here with 20%, jobs here with 0, and jobs here losing 10%. And the more of these that I have, the more of this that I eat. I see companies all the time having jobs that are making 20%, but too many jobs that are losing, consuming that profit. And at the end of the year, there's just not enough left. It's a horrible place to be. You're actually not just working for free, but you're paying people to go and do the work over at their properties because you haven't engineered success yet. And that's really what we do in the Accelerator program. It's important that you can answer a few of these questions, and Lana's designed to help you do this. Lana will do this for you and do this with you. And the more data you put in by uploading documents and job costs into the system, into LeanDocs, the more she can help. She can help analyze a job cost and tell you if your production rates are wrong, if you need to train your staff more, or if maybe that crew just didn't perform for one reason or another. But we want to know what percentage of your jobs fall into each bucket, and then we want to know how we can actually optimize them. Now, when you start to see the results, generally what Lana helps do is analyze these things by saying, here's the jobs that we should eliminate. all together. Here's the jobs that we need to do more of. And maybe we should update some estimating metrics so that when we're pricing jobs, we're allowing for enough hours, so that when we're training our staff, we're training them to get the work done faster, so that when we're out investing in our business, we're buying more work tools that get the work done faster and easier and more profitably. And then at the end of the day, we also have to learn to value engineer our designs and our scope of work to actually produce higher revenue per hour work. An easy one for me was I was plowing snow with pickups for years until we started plowing with loaders and realized that the revenue per hour was 3 times as high, and we had only one person instead of 3. There's so many examples that happen when you start to look at the business this way. It truly changes things overnight. Hopefully these 3 are good takeaways. We've given you a few prompts. We've given you Lana. Put those prompts into Lana. Have a good conversation about revenue per hour. And if you're really interested in learning more, Benji's going to show you how.
We went a little long. If you have questions, and I see a few piling up, we will get to those in 2 minutes. I'm also happy to do a few more prompts that we ran out of time for, but I just want to sort of make a clear point here at the top of the hour before we lose people to the rest of the day. We've covered a bunch of ground, right? At this point, you've got really 2 choices. Choice 1, you can try and go this alone. We've shared with you some tools. LeanScaper AI is free. We are heavy proponents of experimentation and start the journey implementing yourself. You absolutely can make some progress on that. That's the first choice. Choice 2, you can do this the easy way with some help, right? Let us take you by the hand, shortcut the process, and start getting results faster. We have built an entire accelerator program to help you become a tech-enabled landscaping business. This is a really important mindset shift that I think the smart entrepreneurs are getting right now, which is we are a tech company that happens to do landscaping services. That's a very, very different type of business. And while it sounds sexy and it sounds cool, it's not an intuitive or easy shift to make. So we've built an entire program. It's called the Accelerator program. It's led by Mark, that helps you deploy the LeanScaper OS through LeanScaper AI. We give you the tools. We do sessions like this every week. Think of Mark as your fractional CEO rather. We install a new system every week. You build team alignment and accountability, and we massively increase your enterprise value by doing so. So if this is something that you're like, hey, this is kind of cool, I could use some help with this, the next step for you would be to book a free business assessment. We've got a team of guides. They've got space in their calendar tomorrow and next week. If you want to just sit down for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, you can go longer if you want to, and just talk a bit about your business, where it's at, the vision you see in the future, some of the pain points you're going through. They will give you a health score. They'll answer all your questions. And if this is something that feels like the right thing to do, you can talk about what it would look like to join Accelerator as well. So to do that, there's a QR code on screen, which you can scan with your phone. I'm also going to put this in the chat window, just a link, that you can just click on as well. And those 2 things are going to route you to a booking page. Kaylin, maybe you can put that in the chat for me. I can't find my link right now and I'm distracted. So just put that in the chat. Thank you. QR code takes you there. The link that Caitlin just posted takes you there as well. Pick a time that works. Come prepared. Be honest. Be open. This isn't, by the way, guys, this is not a hard sell at all. Like, if this is going to feel like a fit for you and feel like a fit for us, we have an ideal candidate profile as well, just like you do. So if this works, great. And we'd love to start that conversation with you. Scan the QR code to book a time, or you can click the link in the chat box to book a time as well. We have a few questions piling up here that I want to get to. Where is my Q&A box? Mark, some people say revenue per hour should include subs, and some say it is net of subs. Net of subs means you can compare apples to apples amongst crews. What are your thoughts? Should I track both?
Yeah, I like looking at both. There are scenarios where knowing including subs matters, particularly if you're doing the type of work where there's a lot of project management and very little self-performed work. But generally speaking, yes, when you're looking at individual crew performance, it's always net of subs. So you take the subcontractor revenue out on the job. In other words, let's say we go to a backyard design build job and maybe you don't do electrical or you don't build swimming pools. I would just delete those two line items from the revenue on the project. And if you had one crew lead go in and do that job start to finish, all of the other components are their revenue. We divide that by the total hours worked and we have our revenue per hour. On the flip side, if I dropped a project manager off on a large commercial project and 80% of the work was performed by subs, I would want to know what the total revenue was for all of those subs and how many hours we spent managing them. So I'd want to know the revenue per hour under management in that case. So we actually do use revenue per hour in both scenarios, but very rarely do we mix them. The only time that I would actually mix them is if you have subcontractors who work as your crews. In other words, you've got a planting sub and a carpenter sub and a stonemason sub, and you mix them all together and they're your actual self-performing crews and you're just paying them as subs. In that scenario, I would just blend the two. But revenue per hour generally should be calculated on the actual people that are doing the work and only them.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to share here, there's been a few people asking in the chat just about some of the prompts, and we did skip a couple. I apologize just for the timing there. I'll show you a few more here. By the way, as a word of advice, you don't need to, oh, that's not the one I want. You don't need to overthink these prompts. Like there isn't some like secret sequence of words that you say to get the right answer. This is a conversational tool. So you can ask it the first question that comes to your mind, and if you don't like the answer, you can tweak it along the way. And the more that you use this, the more it learns you. This is a very, very intuitive tool. This is not traditional software where every field needs to be right for the form to work. Just it's very human feeling. So some of you, a minute ago, Mark was talking about developing an estimating method that kind of tracks our estimators towards higher revenue per hour work areas. So let's just try this. Can you please help me design an estimating method that helps my estimators price jobs to maximize revenue per hour? Something like a checklist or SOP for my on-site sales process to help us identify and then upsell more high revenue per hour work. Help me systematically find and create value for the customer on more profitable work areas. Let's see. So I'll put that in. It's probably going to build something that's a little long, but let's just have a look. SOP on site estimator. Okay, sales. This is moving pretty fast. So already I'm like, you know what? This is good, but there's no way that probably my estimator is not going to read this much level of detail when he's doing a site walk or doing something like when it's in the actual use case. I think that might not work. So I would just tell it, hey, that's a bit long. I'm worried it won't get used if it's that detailed. Can you make me a job site ready one pager? Do that. It will shorten it for me, keep all the salient points. Okay, that's way better. Save that to Lean Docs and I'll go, estimator one pager. Boom, save it.
Another one here for estimating, Benji, that would be worth just, playing around with for those
Yeah,
that
let's
are
try
here
it.
on the call.
Yep.
When you've got questions like the one that popped up about revenue per hour, ask Lana. She knows these answers. Probably we've had these questions and answers a million times, and trust me, they're all in the system. Other questions that would be like, how long should it take us to install a paver patio 300 feet off the road with a 4-foot access versus an 8-foot access? Lana is designed to help answer really difficult questions. That is really what Lana is that sort of virtual advisor that knows all. Now, I'm not going to say that we have put every last answer on the planet in there, but you're probably going to find that you get awfully close. Sometimes you're going to get the odd answer that's not perfect. All AI still hallucinates a little bit, ours too. Just ask a better question. You look at AI as a conversation with another human. If you don't get the answer you want, you don't usually give up immediately. You usually kind of change your question and change your conversation a little bit until they get what you're asking for. And so don't be afraid to do that. Lana is really based on conversational AI, which means have conversations, ask better questions, and you'll get better answers. But anything we've talked about today, just go ahead and start typing into Lana and start having conversations. I personally spend a couple hours a day at this point doing deep work with AI, both to train it, but also to learn from it. And I think the more that you do this and the more that you save these results or your final product in LeanDocs, the faster you take the source code of running your business out of your brain and you put it into LeanScaper AI so that your staff can then tap into that intelligence via the SOPs and the workflow automations and agents that are coming later this fall.
So I just typed in a question that somebody put in the Q&A, and it's given us a really good question about the, the rev per hour for chemical work. You can read it there. Mark, I want you to hit this as we close, because this is a question that hasn't been asked, but I know everyone's asking it. They'll go, well, this is cool, but how is this different than ChatGPT? And that's a really, really sincere question that I think we actually need to address, because there's some really important parts about the way that this was designed, the data that it's trained on, and then how it learns from us as we keep working with it, that make it very, very different from the generic answers you're going to get from just a public use LLM like GPT. So you don't want to speak to that quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So ChatGPT is obviously a product of OpenAI. We actually did partner with OpenAI when we decided to build this platform. So we are drawing from that same large language model that you're used to dealing with each day. Why would we need our own for this industry? That answer is pretty simple. Really, each company needs to have their own AI database. And what you've actually signed up for when you sign up for LeanScaper is a database. We're giving you a RAG database of your own. And that RAG database, what RAG stands for is Retrieval Augmented Generation. Retrieval Augmented Generation. Now, when you put all of your mastery into the LeanDocs, what you're doing is you're building a central nervous system in your AI database. All of that knowledge is coming from your head and into the database. Now we've got your brain all locked up in there. So when anybody in your company is on your instance and they ask a question, what happens is that question is based upon your database. So it goes to your database, looks at every piece of information that's ever been put in there, and then it goes out into your database, the LeanScaper database, which has tens of thousands of companies using it, and then it goes out into the large language model. And what it's doing is it's retrieving and augmenting the answer based on your data and what LeanScaper has trained it, and then it's grabbing that from the large language models of the world. And I say plural because we're not just working with one, we're working with multiple or all of the major models. And so what happens is you're gathering information from the large language model, and it's contextualizing those answers based on your own database. Without the database, when you ask questions in ChatGPT, you get very generic answers based on the question you typed. When you ask a question in Lana, it's contextualizing it based on everything you've ever said and put in your database, including every file you create with LeanDocs, or every file you upload, or every data connection that you make. And obviously, we plan to connect your data up with many more platforms. Right now, it is connected to your QuickBooks if you've decided to go ahead and connect. Hopefully that helps, but really what we're doing is we're retrieving and augmenting and generating better answers based on you building a hub of knowledge and really taking that founder knowledge and turning it into tribal knowledge.
So we've gone way over, which sometimes happens. I really appreciate those of you that are still on here. There's about 130 of you still here. You can scan the QR code. We'll drop the chat in the link in the chat one more time if you want to book a free assessment. Someone had asked who should come to that, and I would say owner and leadership team would be ideal. But we're going to ask you some questions in the form, and we can we can communicate with you via email more about who should be there if you have questions. Anyway, QR code and link in the chat is how you do that. Book an assessment, meet with one of our guides, learn a bit more about the program. And of course, LeanScaper AI is totally free, and you can use that today. So thank you guys all so much for being here. Really appreciate the time and energy and great questions. We will see you next time. Take care.